I'll go ahead and start by saying what I'm drinking tonight. This is David Nicholson Reserve. So this is the David Nicholson, and it's the good stuff. If you've had the 1858, that's good. This is good.
Very nice. Both of us have had the standard one. I've had the standard one on this podcast before, and it was...
I bought your dad a bottle of the standard one.
You did. You were very generous in that regard.
Oh, has he tried it?
Oh, yes, and he enjoys it.
Oh, good.
Yeah. My dad is now sufficiently old enough, I guess, to be at the point where just I came over for like a brief bit at the house, and he was like, "You want some?" Like, okay.
I do still want to see if I can get my dad to meet your dad, because that would be a fantastic conversation to witness.
That would be. Absolutely, that would be. I'm totally down for it.
We'll have David meet David.
Well, that just means I have to invite your parents to the wedding, but that also means I have to have a wedding. Which means I have to find a relationship. So, just to clarify, people,
you have to get married first.
This is not like, oh crap, Dominic's. No, this is not happening yet.
And then you get to explain to your new wife that you married her so that you could find an excuse for your best friend's dad to meet your dad.
It's a valid reason.
Because I know that my dad would like your dad a lot.
Mm-hmm. And as long as she's fine with it, then it passes muster in the eyes of the church. Just saying.
You have a point. You have a point. One of the questions that they ask at the marriage is not, do you love each other?
It's implied in every other question, but yes.
We have. Will you raise your children in the faith? We will. Are you deeply and madly in love is not one of those questions.
Yeah, it's kind of within every other question.
It's implied.
Yeah. I am drinking far simpler fare this evening. I am drinking Woodford. Which I don't normally go for.
It's not that much simpler than David Nicholson, to be honest, because the regular bottle of David Nicholson's not that expensive. Actually, I think it's cheaper than a bottle of regular Woodford.
No, but I guess part of it is...
But Woodford gets to charge more for being the official bourbon of the Kentucky Derby.
It does, and I'm lucky enough to have the Kentucky Derby bottle that I'm drinking it out of. So if my...
It is pretty. That's a pretty label.
It is.
Who says men don't like pretty things?
No, we very much do.
Our wives, nice finish on a wood table, nice label on a bottle of bourbon.
Yep.
We love pretty things.
Of course we do. So I'm set with that.
And the Atlanta Falcons uniforms from the 80s.
Fair enough. Granted, the Falcons have never had bad uniforms.
And the St. Louis Cardinals road uniforms and the road blue, the powder blue. Mm.
It's good. It is good. It is good.
That's why St. Louis is okay with adding new things, because we don't have a single bad uniform.
No, you only have one questionable uniform that I can think of, and it's the City Connect one.
You don't like our City Connect one because it says the Lou.
It says the Lou, which I know has a meaning, and like that's fine.
It's the nickname of the city. It's the city thing.
Yes,
it's the City of St. Louis thing.
Because I'm not from there, and so it's not a City Connect uniform for me. I am not of that city. It has an entirely different...
You want to talk about City Connect uniforms? Shall we discuss Minnesota's?
Minnesota's are good.
They don't look like baseball uniforms.
They have the ripple of the water. If you don't think they look like baseball uniforms, then like I can't say that you're wrong with that. But they're solid uniforms. They're not the best. I'm never going to say they're the best.
No, the best is the ones that they were wearing at that game we went to, with that really dark blue with the white trousers.
Both that
Those
one
are
and their white one are really good. I'm not as much of a fan of the City Connect as I am of those, nor of our like white and black one that says like Twin Cities on the front in script. I don't know exactly what the name of that uniform is, but yeah, I really like the white and the blue ones, which are just the same uniform, just with different colors. Like it's an identical design otherwise. That I like.
If there's a St. Louis uniform that I don't like.
Yeah. And by the way,
I would say the City Connect uniform as well probably is my least favorite of them, but again, I'm not from St. Louis, so it doesn't... I'm a Cardinals fan, and I always will be to the day I die. Even if I have a son that plays for another team.
No, all of your uniforms are good, and if I move past the fact that the City Connect says the Lou on it, it also is a sharp uniform.
It is. The city patch on the arm is really nice.
Yeah.
It's just got the fleur-de-lis with the arch behind it.
Mm-hmm. We're picking back up where we left off a few weeks ago at this point, and returning
We
to
had some events
we had some
that
events and
got in the
things, but
way.
Pope Leo's encyclical cannot be unpacked in one podcast episode.
No, and anybody that
nor in-
says otherwise is an idiot.
Yeah, nor in two. We're not going to try and complete it this evening necessarily, but what I when I talked about as doing multiple episodes a few weeks ago, one of the things that we talked about as being a podcast episode was a section in kind of the first half. It's not the entire first half, but within the first half of the encyclical, there's a section on social doctrine, and we hear a lot about the social doctrine of the church at times. And I've really boiled it down in the podcast in the past to like the principles of subsidiarity and solidarity, which is a decent way to sum it up. But there is more to be said about that, both in the way that it pertains to the AI question, right? And also the transhumanism question, and also just like every other question that faces society, you know, what your politics should be in this regard and that regard. Like, forget the parties for a second, but just like what should you believe about helping the poor? What should you believe about welfare? What should you believe about taxes? What should you believe about fair wages? What should you believe about housing, probably? And you could keep going on and on and on. Ultimately, how we're supposed to think about these things can
Basically,
be boiled down to a number of principles that Pope Leo outlines in this as like it's not the compendium of social doctrine in the church. That's its own document. This is just a summary, and I think it's pretty good.
I think we would need a whole year worth of podcast episodes to go through the compendium of the social doctrine of the church. But basically, faithfully following the social doctrine of the church. And before you get your panties in a wad about me saying social, because people hear social and think of socialism, St. John the 23rd did say that no Catholic can be a socialist. So calm down.
Exactly.
But social doctrine of the church, meaning actually what political means in the classical sense, right? Of the polis, the society of people learning to work together to create something, to build something, and of the science and the philosophy of rule over man, of organization of society, of how laws are set and all of that. That's what social doctrine really means. And basically following the social doctrine of the church means everybody hates you.
Yeah, it's
the liberals call you a dirty, filthy, conservative fascist, which fascists aren't conservative anyway, but that's another conversation. And the conservatives call you a snot-nosed liberal brat. That's what being Catholic is. Everybody just hates you. That's what being properly Catholic is. Everybody just hates you.
It reminds me of how Chesterton thought of Christianity in general. Like, you know, stumbling across it, and you realize, like, wait, it's getting attacked from this angle. But it's getting attacked from the opposite angle. And then there's this other area where it's getting attacked by both angles, and this other area where it's getting attacked by both angles, and basically either this thing is the most heinous, offensive set of principles and ideas and beliefs ever known to man, or it's something big.
Because we are a church that believes, yes, we should welcome the stranger, but also a nation has the right to determine who is allowed to cross its borders and in what manner.
Yeah. What governs that? The principle of charity. What does that mean? It means both things at once, and you get to figure it out.
It means that when the guy in charge is a virtuous Catholic, you have nothing to worry about.
Yeah, do that.
We have yet to do that in this country, but we'll figure it out eventually.
It will be a true victory.
Hopefully one day we have the reshaping of Christendom.
At that point, I think America will no longer be America. It will be something better, because I know enough of the history of this country to know how feared the Catholics were precisely for that reason.
Yeah, because we can't let them have any power, because then they'll just take over and turn it into Europe. They'll just turn this country into medieval Europe. Well, what's wrong with that?
Yeah, and the Pope will be in charge of everything, right?
Again, what's wrong with that? This Pope? No, what's wrong with that?
Yeah.
Which that's also a false understanding of the role of the Pope in history. There have been popes that have far overplayed their roles. but there have also been popes that play their roles exactly correctly. And we do the typical, I don't know if it's a specifically American thing, but it could just be a regular human thing, of taking the worst example and thinking that that is representative of the baseline of just the average or everybody. And only every now and again do you get one that's good. Because we also have this very American idea that, oh, all kings are bad and all kings are corrupt. Monarchy in itself is just bad. Well, the church technically has a monarchy, and we've lasted 2,000 years. Granted, with the Lord's help, because, as Hilaire Belloc said, no institution run with such knavish imbecility should have lasted a fortnight.
And here we are.
And yet here we are. Basically, you should trust the people that are smarter than you that trusted the church. Like Chesterton and Belloc and Tolkien. It would have been Lewis, too, if he had gotten over his couple of prejudices.
With time, he could well have, but...
Well, he did. He didn't like what he saw from Catholics, and he also hated the Irish.
Well, I can't do much about the Irish, friend, but I, about that piece of it, but... Yeah, let the rest of it be a call to action to us. To represent ourselves better than we do, and to know that our actions speak more volumes than we might think.
I can cure you of anti-Irish prejudice. Sit through an entire match of either hurling or Gaelic football, and you will love the Irish. Or just go to an Irish pub and listen to the Irish sing. But anyway, back to the encyclical.
Yeah, I'll actually let you get started, because I think we should dive straight into the principles. And I know you wanted to talk about the first of those principles. So Pope Leo puts out 5 to 6 principles, depending on how you think of them. 5 of them are called principles. The common good,
adds another one on the very end.
Yeah, common good, universal destination of goods, subsidiarity, like we've talked about, solidarity, like we've talked about, and social justice. And we will cover all of these. And mind you, neither of us can or ever would be classified as SJWs. And yet we believe in what he's talking about. So what does that mean? What does social justice mean, removed from its more modern label? We'll talk about that. But first, the common good. It would make sense that any social doctrine of the church, any doctrine, any set of principles and beliefs kind of governing not so much the theological underpinnings of the church, but more of the how do everyday operations work in people's lives? How do cultures and societies and the components thereof work together? How do they best work together? Like, that's more what the social doctrine of the church is trying to sum up, is trying to tell you how to be able to do. The common good makes sense as a good starting point.
When we talk about the common good, we are not talking about utilitarianism. Utilitarianism is this idea that the best course of action is the one that provides the most comfort and the most success for the greatest number of people, because then everybody else just sort of gets thrown off to the side. The common good is what is actually best, intrinsically, etymologically, the best thing for everybody involved. Because we don't think that any one person, any one group, any one people deserves a higher place than any other. On the plane of man, if we're just talking about the plane of man and the plane of earth, that's a different discussion that we can talk about, because there's a lot of things that make people that maybe are purely physical distinctions. Like the amount of wealth, how hard you're willing to work, yada, 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 that whole thing. But every man is made in the image and likeness of God. So because of that, the common good is the good that is ordered toward... I'm going to start over. The common good is the thing that is ordered toward the highest good for everybody. Now, that may mean that certain people don't get as high a good as they want. And that may mean that certain other people get a higher good than other people think they deserve. But it is the highest good for everyone. Period.
Yeah, there's something to be said for the striving of it, right? So I know you want to go into this, and I don't want to say too much, but he does define it as the sum total of social conditions which allow people, either as groups or individuals, to reach their fulfillment more fully and more easily. And he talks about how basically it's not a mere list of conditions. Like, everybody has this level of healthcare, or everybody has this wage, although those things are important, right?
Minimum wage is actually having a minimum wage set is actually an important thing for the common good.
If it works, and that's a conversation for another time.
It's a different conversation, and just as an aside, I think it needs to be a per profession thing. Because, of course, the teenager flipping burgers doesn't necessarily need to be making $35 an hour.
Yeah. The other way to frame it up is simply just, ultimately, people need to make enough money to live with dignity. What that means, how much it means, how you go about that, we'll figure it out. But it's not it's not a mere list of institutions that you've built up. It's not a sum total of benefits. It's not the intersection of particular interests. He says it is a greater good that belongs to everyone and can only be gotten through our collective efforts and nurtured and protected.
Which means that this is a shared responsibility among everybody. You don't just get to sit back and wait for Congress to vote on something that'll fix your life. You have to do things too. Because how is a building built? The great skyscrapers of New York City. How were they built? Were they built from the top down? No, they're built from the bottom up. Foundation of society is the people, and it is the least of these. It is the people who work, who pay their taxes. Because yes, the state has the right to demand that. Render unto Caesar that which belongs to Caesar. The state is protecting you and providing order to society. It's entitled to some compensation for that. And in fact, it needs money for that. So it either, a state that doesn't have money, that doesn't ask for taxes from its people, has to go and steal money from somebody else.
Which we don't want either.
Which we certainly don't want. So think about that next time you complain about your taxes. But buildings are built by brick, and a building is less for every single brick that isn't there.
It's all those people, and it's all the conversations they have and social interactions and cool things that they do, institutions they build, their worship of their God. Like it's those things that all make up the common good.
This is how the Holy Father puts it.
Yeah.
Paragraph 63 of Magnifica Humanitas, which is a beautiful title for an encyclical, The Magnificence of Humanity. It is the state's responsibility to ensure cohesion, unity, and the proper organization of civil society so that the common good can be pursued with everyone's contribution. In practical terms, this means that the public authorities have the delicate duty to harmonize the different sectoral interests with the requirements of justice, seeking a balance between individual interests and the common good, without leaving behind the most vulnerable. When politics abandons a long-term perspective and reduces itself to short-term calculations or sterile polarizations, then the language of the common good loses credibility, and at the same time social inequalities and divisions grow. Do you know who winds up suffering when opposing political parties decide that they want to have their own private war? The poor. People that actually need help. The ordinary people. It's worth mentioning at this point. Our first president, George Washington, was against party politics.
We're ways past that.
We are way past that. And we got way past that by the time we were electing our second president.
Yeah, it didn't last long.
It did not last long. Congress just sort of went with it out of respect for President Washington. Because they kind of went, yeah, okay. Yeah, we call you the father of our country. You're the general of people like you. I guess we're just going to do what you say for right now. And then we have the first proper election after Washington decides he's not going to run again. Actually, Washington demands that he not get elected for a third term. When he says, I'm done, let me go home to Valley Forge. They thought about crowning him king. And he basically said, wait, I thought we were done with kings. I thought that was the whole point. But he served 2 terms. And then said, nope, I'm done. I'm going home. I'm going to spend the rest of my days with my wife. And he did. And then immediately, it becomes about parties. But what to get back to the actual point at hand, what the Holy Father is saying is that the state has the responsibility and the power, because Uncle Ben will always be right. With great power also comes great responsibility. Mm-hmm. So the state has the power and the responsibility to ensure cohesion, unity, and the proper organization of civil society. Now, that's not necessarily by any means necessary. Well, actually, it is by means that are necessary. If there genuinely is no other way to ensure a civil and unified society, then the state can take the most necessary action. Because that's also their responsibility. Because if they just allow civil unrest to grow and, the poor to be forgotten, and if they allow society to crumble, then the state is failing in its job. And the state is actually committing a grave sin if it deliberately allows that to happen.
Yeah, but to what end is the question. So how it ought to respond to that is not necessarily with...
Right, we don't necessarily need to respond to that with jackbooted thugs curb stomping everybody.
Yeah, what we're getting at is the larger principles, which is really the whole goal of this, is not to flesh out all of the nooks and crannies. But
we're not looking at particulars at the moment. But essentially what that means is that when Congress passes a law, you should obey it. You don't get to say, well, I don't like it, so it doesn't apply to me.
Yeah, the question is it just? And
an unjust law, actually, we are not bound to follow.
Because it's
if
not
it's
a law
genuinely unjust, because it's not actually, right, like you said, it's not actually a law. We don't have to obey it. However, sometimes it is good to bend your neck to the headsman's axe, especially when you're a Catholic, because a lot of Catholics have done that. Martyrdom is a sure way into heaven, because we remember that we're not living for this world. The rules that are applied for the state to follow are there for the good of the souls of the men who operate the state, because that's who operates the state. Human beings. People who are fallen, just as fallen as everybody else. Seeking a savior in an elected official is absolute folly.
Yeah, it don't work.
It never will.
It just don't.
It never will.
We wouldn't even do that with the Pope. Definitely.
No, even seeking a savior in a pope is absolute folly.
Yeah.
Because, people were complaining about Pope Francis. You want bad. We can talk about bad popes.
Well, yeah, we can talk about bad popes. We can also talk about good popes.
There have been popes. It was one of the Pope Johns. I forget which one. They hung him upside down out a window.
Did something right.
There were popes that... Oh, no, because he did so much wrong.
Oh, never mind.
There were popes that lied, that cheated, that stole, that bought their way into the throne of Peter.
Multiple times.
There is a reason that there hasn't been a Pope Alexander or Julius for 500 years, because the last popes to take those names were so bad that nobody wants to touch them. Pope Alexander VI had illegitimate children.
Ouch.
One of whom, whose wedding he officiated.
What a look.
He was a Borgia. And for those of you who don't know the Borgia family...
He wasn't even the worst Borgia to be Pope.
The black sheep of the Borgia family is a canonized saint. It's St. Francis Borgia. And he's the black sheep of the family. So, the Borgias are unbelievably messed up. So before you complain about the Pope... And I know that this particular encyclical... There will be certain people that will laser focus on one or two phrases in this encyclical that, maybe are a little bit soft when they should be harder, or maybe are liberal according to American politics. But these are the words of the Holy Father, and you should listen to them.
Because he's your father. Because
he is your father.
He is doing his job to build up the common good. Again, we talked about the role of the government in building up the common good, and it has a big important one. But that is ultimately all of ours. And one of the ways in which we do that is, well, for us Catholics, when the Vicar of Christ on earth says something, you should pay attention.
And Americans, calm down.
When you're
not everything is about you.
Yeah, not everything is about you. Just like when your father says something, you should pay attention. Maybe he's a good dad, maybe he's a bad dad. I don't know. And I kind of don't care, because at least in general, you should pay attention. You should always respect him. That requirement never goes away.
On a ship, the captain's orders must always be obeyed, even if they are wrong. Why is that?
Well, it's not true. It's most of the time.
Well, it's not true. When the captain's orders are very wrong, they definitely need to not be obeyed.
The vast majority of the time.
The vast majority of the time, you should obey the captain's orders. I need to watch the Caine Mutiny at some point. But anyway, unless you're serving under Captain Queeg, you follow your captain, because he knows more than you. And he is in the position to steer the ship, and you may not know why. that's not always your job.
Yeah, so at all levels of society, it is do your job and be the best person you can be for
For your
yourself,
place in
for your
society,
neighbor,
for your place in life.
yeah, for you, for your God, for you, for your neighbor, for your community, for your country, right? Common good is the thing that builds that up, and so you in your own capacity have to go focus on that. And your neighbor in his own capacity has to focus on that, and you all have to have discourse. And then you as a town ought to have discourse, and you as a state, you as a nation, you as a world, as a globe, ought to have
You
that.
as a people.
You as a people ought to have that discourse and just try and pursue it. Is that very
Right.
vague? Yeah, it is. That's the point of this discussion. But aim at that, and don't aim at the pedantics of life, and don't aim at thinking about, well, this grievance and that grievance and this grievance and that grievance, like, and all of these things that I can't do anything about. No, focus on what you can do something about.
There's a book, I forget what its title is, but it's one that was brought up when I was working in a factory. The company had a meeting, and there was this book that was brought up that they were suggesting for all the line leads and managers to read. That was written by 2 or 3 Navy SEALs. And the point of the book
Was it
was,
Extreme Ownership?
it might have been.
It's a good book.
The point of the book is you have to control your world because that's the only thing you can exercise control over. So it doesn't matter to you. It may matter, but you should know what you can't actually control. Can I control the fact that the president declared war in Iran? No. Can I be upset about it? Maybe. Can I do anything about it? No. All I can control and all I can do, all we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to us. Since the Holy Father has decided to quote Gandalf, so will I.
So will you. So will I too. So this second principle that he talks about is the universal destination of goods. And that's got an intriguing title. Like, what is the universal destination of goods supposed to be? Um,
The common good.
yeah, it is one of the numerous implications of the common good that he talks about. And
That's the thing about all the principles of Catholic social teaching. They are all ordered towards the common good.
yeah,
So it's like the common good is the root, and then everything grows out of that.
mm-hmm.
But please continue.
No, you're fine. And basically, the short definition of it is all that we have in the world and resources and the things of life, they are gifts from God. And they are gifts from God ultimately to the entire human family, to sustain the lives of all, and that every person has an inherent right to the use of such goods both now and in the future, is the words that he uses. And you might be thinking, wait, but private property is a thing. Yes, it is. Private property is absolutely a thing, and the church is never, ever, ever going to
Yes.
say that it's not a thing.
As paragraph 66 right here.
Yeah, that is the paragraph that I will read that further outlines this. Certainly there is a right to private property, which has its own specific meaning and purpose, yet it is always subordinate to the universal destination of goods. According to John Paul II, this subordination is the golden rule of social conduct and the first principle of the whole ethical and social order. In the Church's tradition, property has been viewed as a means of protecting and managing goods so that they may better serve the common good. Since the Christian tradition has never recognized the right to private property as absolute or inviolable, its social function must not be considered a mere theological opinion, but a doctrine of the Church, already present in sacred scripture and in the writings of the Church Fathers. For this reason, Pope Francis reminded us that solidarity, a point we'll cover more later, when lived out to its fullest sense, also means to restore to the poor what belongs to them. So what does that mean? Because this sounds on the surface rather communist, rather socialist, rather, well, we must spread all of the good out. Everybody that has to pursue equality, right? No one can have too much.
Well, I think the comparison with communism dies as soon as the Holy Father says certainly there is a right to private property.
Yes. Now, granted, it doesn't mean the private property goes away. It
Right.
doesn't mean that I can't have a house and, the poor in my town don't have a house and it's somehow unjust that I have a house and they don't. That's not what he's saying.
Yeah.
Again, we're painting in broad strokes over society, what society as a whole ought to aim at. Like, it's perfectly fine that I have a house and when the poor don't. And it's perfectly fine that I don't necessarily invite them into my house.
Well, it's
Even
not
if, like,
fine that the poor don't have a house.
I didn't say it was fine that the poor don't have a house. I said it was
It's
fine.
fine that you have a house.
Yes.
It's not fine that the poor have a house. It's not
Yes.
fine. It is fine that you have a house, and it's not fine that the poor have a house. That is two separate statements.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody gets to come in and say, well, it's horribly unjust that you get to live in this nice house while these poor people are starving in the street. Nobody actually gets to come in and say that.
No.
Because presumably you have worked for that for that nice house
Mm-hmm.
that you are providing for somebody else.
Yeah.
Either that or it has been, as was my house, which is very nice. It has been basically given to you, and assistance is being given to you to live there. In which case, you are poor, and someone is helping you, and you should not stand in the way of their charity. Yeah, it is perfectly right for you to live in a house. It is not right for the poor to not live in the house. So what is the solution? Poor houses. But poor houses should be nice.
Yeah. In other words, the solution is charity, right? Like, there are if you want to read deeper into what the church says on this, there are particular cases where your private property can just de facto become somebody else's. Like, basically, think of this as a scenario. If you have a farm and there's a poor person that's, walking through the field and, like, they're starving and they desperately need food or they're going to die, like, they can go and they can take your food. And they don't have to pay you back for it. Ultimately, because, like,
Yeah.
now, if they're fine, they can't just go doing this willy-nilly. Like, that would be stealing, right? So there's no way that, this can just be misused and abused and say, like, okay, like, well, anybody can take anything of anybody else's. No, that's not how it works. Or I think I have a right to their property. No, you don't. But in
There
general,
isn't, oh, I feel bad about myself, so I can go and take something that belongs to somebody else. No, that's not how that works.
Yeah.
Or, oh, my ancestors were abused, so therefore I can go and take. No.
My personal favorite one, my side tangent I'll go into here. People that say, like, well, we can pirate whatever we want because these people aren't making this product anymore and it's not fair that they don't make it available to us. Yes, it's perfectly fair. They don't make it available to you. Just pipe down, okay? No one cares about the fact that you can't have your particular type of entertainment in this. Just shut up. Anyway.
It may be a little bit sad that you don't get that video game that you remember from when you were 12.
Sure, but sadness is part of life. Deal with it.
Welcome to being Catholic.
Welcome to being human. Anyway, but in general, we ought to try and help our neighbor. In general, we ought to try and look to the people that are below us and try and raise them up. Right? How that's supposed to look, how much you're supposed to give, what type of aid you're supposed to give, like, I don't know. That's a process of discernment that you get to go through. But you got to do something. It's like Christ when he says, when you pray, you're going to go do this. And and it's implied in that, like, it's not an option of whether you're going to pray. Like, you're going to pray. And then he talks about giving alms in the same way. Like, you're going to give alms. And so when you do it, don't do it like the hypocrites do. Do it this way. But you're going to give alms.
In a way,
figure out how to give alms.
That is almost saying that alms are not the responsibility of the state.
Mm-hmm.
So the care of the poor is not necessarily the government's responsibility. That actually is the responsibility of individuals. And you can't just pass that up. You can't pass the buck.
So and it's not just about giving aid to people, it's also about how we use the earth. So I'll end with this point, with this point for thought. Because you're going to hear about plenty of scenarios in life like the scenario I'm going to try and paint here. Let's say that you have a beautiful tract of land here in the U.S. It's gorgeous. People go there and visit. And even if people don't necessarily go there and visit, they know of its existence, right? Whether it's a park or it's just this wilderness, right? Like, I like the wilderness. I like the fact that those places exist. I want to protect them. Now, let's say that you find, I don't know, some rare earths underneath there, or you find copper underneath there, or you find oil underneath there, you find some valuable resource that people would have to have. And so there's people that want to go and mine it. Then I'm sure they want to make a buck off of it because that's reasonable to do. Like, it's work. It's
They're
providing
putting
value
work
to
into it.
people.
They should be paid for that.
Yeah, they should be paid for it. But no, we'd go and destroy this. We'd go and destroy this this place that everybody loves. And the point of applying the principle of universal destination of goods to this scenario is not to say that either of those parties are right. It's to lay the groundwork for all the parties in question to have a discussion about it. And try and figure out in this scenario, what is the best course of action for us?
Well, because the discussion that has to be had is, say it's this beautiful natural landmark, even if it's just like a rock. And if you don't believe that a rock can be a beautiful natural landmark, go and look up what every state's most beautiful natural landmark is. I guarantee you it will be just a rock.
Yeah, it could be that. It could be, again,
whatever it is.
It could be all sorts of things, yeah.
Whatever it is, the people, whoever owns this land, and whoever wants to dig on this land for whatever the natural resource is, whether it's oil or gold or silver or lithium or whatever it is, can the natural beauty of the area be preserved and the material be taken from it at the same time?
That'd be the highest point to aim at, right? Yeah.
That is what we are searching for, because that is the common good in conjunction with the universal destination of goods. Because it is good for man to come and see the beauty of God's creation. However, God's creation is also here for man's use. So we have to have the things that are here for our use, which is every element on the periodic table. And we also have to have that beauty which is psychologically and philosophically good for us. Because I don't want to live in a world run by scientists. I also don't want to live in a world run by philosophers. I also don't want to live in a world run by artists.
Y'all have a role. So yeah, I mean, that's well said.
Everyone has a place.
Yeah, you have to try and aim at both. And let's say you come to a realization that you, in this situation, can't have both. You only get one or the other. But they're both good. Well, again, you got to figure out which one of those is best. And that's a discussion not for the people who are going to be building this mine or whatever it is, nor is it a discussion solely for the people who are enjoying the beauty. It's a shared thing. It is a shared responsibility, and odds are there's a way to try and do both somehow. If people set their minds to it.
There is a way to try and do both.
Constraints breed creativity.
But if there, we'll just say for the sake of argument, there is absolutely no possible way to preserve the place's natural beauty and also obtain the natural resources from it that we need, you're not supposed to breathe the smoke.
Did I say I was smart?
If there is absolutely no way that we can preserve its natural beauty and take the resources from it that we need, both of those goods are actually equal. The natural beauty of the place and the natural resources that are under it are intrinsically equal things. So ultimately, if a discussion is had and a proper agreement has taken place and a proper accord has come to, then whatever that resolution is the right decision. Because you're trying to choose between two equal things. Because there's the natural beauty that God created and the materials, the earth, that has been taken for man's use. So we can either sacrifice this material that we need, or we sacrifice this beauty that we need. Because man needs to see beauty. Why do you think we get married?
Not for utility.
No, marriage makes life a whole lot harder and more difficult and miserable if you don't have the right attitude towards it.
Exactly.
But man needs beauty and man needs utility. So if you absolutely must sacrifice one or the other, as long as a proper discussion is had, one of those is the right option. And that ultimately depends on everybody involved.
Yep. One of those is better, but it should be a fair discussion. But yeah, that is a brief amateur take on the universal destination of goods. Next, we have, the one we've probably talked about more on this podcast than any other, which is subsidiarity,
which
I
also
especially like.
Pope Leo the 14th happens to summarize better than anybody that I've ever heard. Certainly better than the two of us could. This principle encourages us to move beyond any form of paternalistic or welfare-based management of societal life, but instead to promote a culture of shared responsibility in a state that values citizens' initiative, and a civil society capable of forging bonds and mobilizing energies in the services of the common good. In accordance with the principle of subsidiarity, decisions are made at the closest level possible to the persons involved, thereby fostering community life and avoiding people being presented with decisions that have already been taken. In this way, people can participate in the decision-making process. When families, associations, local communities, volunteer organizations, and those in so-called third sector are recognized and supported, social life becomes more accessible to people, services become more attuned to real needs, and solutions are more creative and respectful to the dignity of each person.
It's a banger. It's an absolute banger.
That I haven't heard a better description of the principle of subsidiarity than that since Rerum Novarum itself.
Yeah, and the point
which is fitting considering that's the entire point that Pope Leo chose his name. Yeah, and the point of that isn't necessarily that welfare is evil, but it is evil to entirely base the good of the poor on state welfare. Because again, at that point, that's socialism, and popes have already said that Catholics can't be socialist. So
it would have to be the only available option, and you don't want to imagine a society where it's the only available
Oh,
option.
man.
Not even the final empire in Mistborn counts as this.
Oh, man.
That's a thought experiment, isn't it?
Not even a world ruled by Sauron counts as that.
Yeah, it would be one where everybody is so completely impoverished that...
and yet somehow the state is so overwhelmingly wealthy.
Yeah, like forget the whole you will own nothing and be happy. This is you will own nothing and be within an inch of death every second of your life from pure misery. That's how bad this would be. And even then,
that is the only way in which welfare is a necessary thing.
But
no, really,
yeah.
The principle of subsidiarity is that everything be done at the most local possible level. And that means both economically and politically. You want to fix this country? Pay more attention to your county officials. You want to fix this country? Pay more attention to your local businesses. Which, incidentally, is another reason that I think a switch to entirely sales tax is better than having income tax, because then the people that own local small businesses aren't also paying personal income tax on top of the business income tax that they have to also pay. So it actually does make it easier on small businesses. But anyway, I only work in the tax department of the state. What do I know? Granted, I have coworkers that disagree with me, but they're allowed to be wrong. But no, the principle of subsidiarity is basically that the most possible things need to be done at the most possible local level. Like hobbits. We had an entire episode on hobbits. The hobbits very rarely need to actually go to the mayor of Michael Delving.
He's the mayor of the Shire, more or less. But yeah, what he does
more or less, that's just because Michael Delving is the biggest town in all of the Shire. So he de facto has all the most power in the Shire.
That's what he does.
That's what the mayor of Michael Delving does. But disputes only come to him when the family cannot, or the local community cannot handle it. But no, the principle of subsidiarity is just the life of hobbits. Everything is taken care of at the most local possible level.
Just everything's better when you do it on the most local and the most, here's a good way to frame it, on the most personal level possible.
And imagine if all of your grocery shopping was done from the local market. Wouldn't that be something?
That would be.
I know a lot of people just do all their grocery shopping from Walmart, which I think get me started. We fortunately have a couple of different options where I live for at least we have one grocery store in town that is a distinctly Missouri brand. It started in St. Louis and spread from there. I don't know if there's any in Illinois. I don't care. Their prices are usually pretty good. I don't have any issue with them. We have one that is a distinctly Midwest brand, and that's Hy-Vee. I'm sure people know Hy-Vee. They actually have one ad in particular that I've seen a whole bunch of times that's almost made me cry on multiple occasions because it's that good.
Ivy had some really good ones about the
And
smiles.
the shortest distance between two people is a smile.
Yep.
Yeah, that one. We'll have
Yeah,
a
very
whole
good.
podcast episode on that at some point. That's subsidiarity, actually, right there. The shortest
That
distance
is.
between two people is a smile. That's subsidiarity. And then we actually do have one grocery store in town that I know of, proof positive, that is local this city, that has been around in this particular city for at least 50 years. And they're actually pretty great because all their employees wear like the typical old-fashioned grocer outfit. Like they wear khakis and then a white shirt and an apron.
Okay.
It's pretty great. They're a little bit more expensive, but man, they make really good donuts. Which is how you do well in this town. You got to make a good donut to do well in this town.
You hit the nail on the head with it though, because like I know I have a soft spot in my heart for going and shopping at more local places or places that at least feel more local.
I've only
Um,
been up to the Twin Cities 2 or 3 times, and I can tell you what your best places are to shop at.
what would you say there?
One of them is Cub.
Well, I can think of a lot more local than Cub.
You're gonna think I'm more local than Cub.
Yeah, Cub
I've
is
never seen a Cub outside of Minneapolis.
they're owned by Super Value, which is the thing. But they're
Okay.
but yeah, Cub's definitely fair. Um, most
See,
people on the podcast
Cub
have no
sound
idea.
seems to you guys. Yeah, anybody listening that's outside of Minnesota has no idea what we're talking about. Minnesota and Missouri has no idea what we're talking about. But Cubs to you guys feels like the Schnucks for us, because Schnucks is like a Missouri brand. Anybody in Missouri really knows what I'm talking about. At least you should. Started in St. Louis. We've got one here in Jefferson City. Pretty sure there's some in Kansas City, Springfield. They're not massive, but they're big enough to be distinguishable as a Missouri brand.
Yeah, and it goes beyond grocery stores too. I think that a lot of what this comes down to is just in terms of the business side is just try and support local. So it's fine to go to Costco. It's not a sin to go to Costco. It's not a sin to go to Walmart.
Certainly not.
But
especially if you have to because you're budget constrained.
Yeah, but if you could try and go to a Cub, which might be a little bit more, then do that. If you can try and go to, again, nobody will know what I'm about to say, a Kowalski's. We don't have a ton of those, but
I've never been in a Kowalski's, but I will say this to Minnesota's credit: the couple Cubs that I've been in have been very nice.
Yeah,
and they
sure.
felt like going into a Schnucks. It felt like a local homey place.
Yeah. The North Dakota equivalent would be Dan's.
Dan's was really nice. I really liked shopping at Dan's when we were in North Dakota.
It was solid. Now, granted, if you want to go even more local, pick a co-op. Now you're gonna pay for it.
Or like a farmer's market.
If you go, but I mean like a Lakewinds or a Whole Foods.
Oh. Yeah.
Now Bismarck had an example of this. The Bisman co-op. I remember going in there and not getting a ton of food and paying $100 for it.
Oh.
It's like, again, it's more locally sourced. Like, it does the things we're talking about. So can everybody do that? I'm not saying you can. I'm not saying you should.
That's good for an every now and again splurge.
Yeah, I'm just setting something up.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Well, sure. I mean, if you can. I think what you said is a great way to think about it, because ultimately, again, this is a broad principle. This is highlighting kind of the highest thing we can aim at. It'd be similar to be saying like, okay, I would like to eat meat, chicken, pork, beef, the whole 9 yards, that is, cruelty free and not raised on factory farms, if I can avoid it. But I would like things to be raised in the best way possible, right? Can I afford it? No. Okay, fine. I can only do what I can do, but if I can aim higher a bit, that'd be great. So
people say that raising cattle for the purpose of the meat is immoral, but there are only two purposes of raising cattle, because I don't know if you spent any time around a cow. They're not the best company. They can be sweet, they can be gentle, but they're not all that bright. They're not great for conversation.
Mm-hmm. No, we should be humane in how we treat them. But
So there are two reasons to have cows. One is milk and one is meat. So you should be humane in how you raise them, humane in how you treat them, and humane in how you take their lives. Personally, I like having if we blend what the Old Testament Jews and the Indians did every time they had to kill. I mean this kind of Indian, by the way. The casino kind, not the customer service kind. Every time they had to kill in ancient times, it was a thanks. You give thanks to the bounty of the earth. Thanks for the bounty of the earth. Because every time the Indians, and I'm speaking more of the more major tribes like the Iroquois and the Apache, the tribes that we know a lot more about, when they got to kill, you thank the animal for offering its life for you, that your people may live. And in old Hebrew tradition, you thank the Lord for his bounty, for offering you the kill.
Yeah. Recognizing that
And
all good comes from his hands.
A good hunter, notice this. This is what my dad does every time he goes out to hunt. Every time he goes out to hunt, he says a little prayer, and he says, "Good Lord, whatever you put in front of me today, I know you want me to see. I don't care whether it's a kill or not." And every kill that my father's ever gotten has been a good kill. Except one when he was like 25. When he was a young man. And he didn't see the fawn and heard it crying while he was field dressing its mother. He said that's the closest he's ever gotten to crying in the woods. He almost shot himself. Anyway, I don't think it was that extreme, but he almost broke down in the middle of the woods hearing that. But he finally managed to get it to go away. But anyway, that's what my father says every time he goes out in the woods for a hunt. And every time he has a kill, he thanks the Lord for providing him with a bounty.
With that, we'll see you next time.